and then start whenever you're ready.
Okay. It's not live just yet.
Okay.
It's getting ready to go live.
Pulled up last week.
All right. There we are. There we are.
All right.
We're live.
We're ready. Let's go. We're
All
live.
right. All right. So we're on tonight. Myself and Jacqueline Sarver, the technical director of this channel here, Electra James Inspirational Talks. And we're going to be talking about a very serious subject, the misconception of disabilities. Those who have disabilities, whether it is seen, like the visible disabilities that we see, and those that we don't see. So, Ms. Sarver is going to be going into depth on this subject. And so, if you have any questions, go into the chat section, type in those questions, and she's going to answer them to the best of her ability. We do understand it's a touchy subject, but it is a part
It
of
is.
life. It really is. So now,
Right.
Jackie, you can move forward.
And I want to say right off the bat that I'm not an expert at this, but
Okay.
what I am is a disabled person.
Yes.
I am a person with disabilities. I use an electric wheelchair
Mm-hmm.
to get about. I also can manage with a walker, but I can only take about 5 steps at a time with a walker.
Mm-hmm.
I had to retire early because of my disability because I cannot sit up or stand for more than about 3 or 4 hours at a time
Mm-hmm.
um, complete. I can no longer hold a pen to write because of my disability. But when people see me, if you just saw me sitting in a chair, let's say I was just sitting in a chair at a restaurant. If
Uh-huh.
you were to just see me without being in my wheelchair, without the walker being beside me, you would not know that I'm a disabled person.
Yes.
And you know what? That's what I want you to see me as, just another person, whether I'm in my wheelchair or not.
Mm-hmm.
So, what Electra and I have done is come up with some questions and answers
Mm-hmm.
that I feel are appropriate that people ask all the time. And the
Yes.
first one that I want to say, what should you do if your child approaches a disabled person uh, and is staring at them or is asking them questions?
Mm-hmm.
So take a second. If anybody wants to respond to that, what do you think you should do? What do you think you should do? Electra, what would you do if you your child or grandchild or great grandchild walked up to a person who was physically or obviously disabled in some way and was just staring at them? What would you do?
The first thing that I would do would be to grab their hand, and I would tell the person to excuse me for a second, and I would help that child, my child, grandchild, to understand that it's inappropriate to do that, um, and apologize to that individual for what happened, because then it opens the gateway for sometimes the person that's in that situation may want to share.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I believe
Mm-hmm.
that giving them the opportunity and how they would like
Mm-hmm.
to
Mm-hmm.
respond is the most valuable thing that you can do. is the most
Mm-hmm.
valuable. That's
Mm-hmm.
just me.
I
That's
mean,
just me.
yes. I'm in 98% agreement with you. The
Mm-hmm.
only thing I will add to that is when you tell that child it's inappropriate to stare, not that it's just inappropriate to stare at a disabled person, it's inappropriate to just stare at anybody like that.
Exactly.
So don't single them out and say little, Janice or whatever your name is. It's
Mm-hmm.
inappropriate to just stare at people like this.
Yes.
And excuse me, please forgive my grandchild. I don't think she's ever seen a person
Mm-hmm.
in a wheelchair before.
Yes.
And that way, that person can either say, the person who's the disabled person can either say, okay, never mind, thank you,
Mm-hmm.
and just
Mm-hmm.
walk away or roll away, or they can say, that's all right. Look, you see how these wheels, that gives, just like you said, it opens the opportunity for them to
Mm-hmm.
speak if they wish to, for
Exactly.
them to address and teach that child.
Yes.
Exactly. I love
Yes.
that. So
Yes.
that is the most common thing that happens in grocery stores, churches,
Mm-hmm.
buses, restaurants,
Mm-hmm.
anywhere.
Yes.
I usually have a small flashlight that I
Uh-huh.
keep attached to my chair
Yes.
that has a little emblem of the wheelchair, the
Mm-hmm.
little, person in a wheelchair emblem in it, like you see on parking spots and stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
I let children play with that
Oh, okay.
because it gives them something to touch.
Yes.
Children are tactile and it gives them something to touch. And so they turn that little flashlight on and off. I show them how it turns on and off. And I tell them, now if somebody says you can touch their wheelchair, like I'm saying you can touch this part,
Mm-hmm.
then you can touch this part, but don't touch any of the other parts.
Mm-hmm.
Don't touch this handle. Don't touch this because this is like my car
Mm-hmm.
and you wouldn't want me to have a crash.
Oh,
So
yes.
I I do explain to them. I like to give them something tactile.
Yes.
So I always have this little flashlight
Mm-hmm.
that's attached to my chair. And where did I get that flashlight? Every year in Houston. Now, last year it was virtual. I don't know if it's going to be virtual this year or not.
Okay.
Something called the Abilities Expo. And if
Oh,
you
okay.
want your child to become familiar with the disabled community,
Mm-hmm.
take them to the Abilities Expo. It's usually in August every year, and it's usually free. I mean, they
Okay.
have things you can buy there, but it's free. And they have all kinds of sensory and physical things to show children about the disabled. It's a
Okay.
wonderful venue.
Yes.
Okay, so that's my first. Children are and remember that children are innocent.
Yes.
Remember that
Yes.
children are innocent.
Yes.
When they are staring or doing, don't punish them for it. It's not a
Yes.
punishable thing, it's a teaching thing. So,
Teachable moment.
okay,
Mm-hmm.
a teachable moment.
Okay.
Next question. Okay, you get in an elevator and the only other occupant is in a wheelchair.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do?
You get in the elevator,
Okay,
and the other occupant is in a wheelchair. I would
the
let.
only other occupant, the only other occupant is in a wheelchair.
Okay. Um, I would take my rightful place inside the elevator. Um,
Mm-hmm.
making sure that I don't like. I would let them get off first, out of respect.
Mm-hmm.
Out of respect.
Mm-hmm.
That would be
Mm-hmm.
my initial thought.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um,
And that's perfectly okay because you want to make sure nobody's toes.
yeah,
That person is probably hoping doesn't want to run over anybody's toes.
yeah, exactly,
They're hoping not to run over
exactly.
anybody's toes.
Mhm,
Let's say you're waiting for an elevator
mhm.
and a person in a wheelchair comes up to get on that elevator at the same time you do, and it's the two of you.
Uh huh.
I would say you let that person, you hold the door for that disabled person, just as you would for an elderly person,
Uh huh.
just as you would for someone who had a baby carriage, it was pushing, a child in a pram.
Mhm.
You hold that door for them, and when you get inside, you say, "Hey, what floor?"
Yes.
Just like you would say to anybody else.
Mhm.
and take that opportunity to say, hey, I'm going to the fifth floor. What floor are you going to? Or can I push the floor for you?
Mm-hmm.
And 9 times out of 10, they're going to say 7, 11, 12, whatever. And they're going to say thank you.
Yes. I
Just like the general, oh, go ahead.
One of the things that I'm learning as you are, presenting the questions, and I believe when I put the notice out there, I put it as a discussion. So,
Mm-hmm.
what I'm finding is that within myself, we have to be educated about disability. And that is what
Mm-hmm.
you are doing on
Mm-hmm.
tonight for those who have not come on yet and will be coming on.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes people are
Mm-hmm.
viewing, they're just not saying anything because they don't know what to say.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I think that's true.
mm-hmm,
I think a lot of people just just as a point of education, when you see someone who is disabled,
mm-hmm,
you may see they may look like me, and they may look like they have no deformity at all. But
yes,
then again, they may be someone whose arms are twisted, or legs are twisted, or head is twisted.
mm-hmm,
Um, and people automatically, if someone looks different
uh-huh,
from them, they
uh-huh,
have an automatic fear reaction, and they're like, am I going to hurt that person, or does that person have something contagious? Is that person, what is the situation? I'm going to tell you, because not only am I a disabled person, but
mm-hmm,
I grew up long before I was in a wheelchair. I grew up in a community of disabled people.
okay,
So I know this.
yes,
I know this from experience. Disabled people, first of all, if they were contagious, they wouldn't
mm-hmm,
be in public. Trust me.
mm-hmm, right,
They don't want to spread anything.
right,
They're not contagious. You can't get what they've got by being near them. They are just as subject to the coronavirus as you are.
mm-hmm,
They are just as subject to the flu as you are.
mm-hmm,
So, yes, they should be wearing a mask just like you are right now.
yes,
But they are not, you cannot catch what they have. You cannot become disabled like they are disabled from breathing the same air that they're breathing.
and
Okay?
and
As a general rule, I'm sorry, go ahead.
and that's where the misconception comes in. Even what you
Mm-hmm.
said just
Mm-hmm.
then explains in such detail misconception because people see sometimes a visible disability and they, for whatever
Mm-hmm.
reason, may respond in a manner in which, ooh, I don't want to be like that. Or
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
don't want to be connected to that. But
Mm-hmm.
one of the things
Mm-hmm.
I want to say, Jackie, in hearing you talk, and even over time, just wanted to kind of interject how we can be completely fine today, but there are
Mm-hmm.
things that can throw us into
Mm-hmm.
that category. Car wrecks, um,
Exactly.
just in the
Diseases,
wrong diseases,
illnesses,
yes, or
a misstep.
exactly. People
Mm-hmm.
sometimes in a violent situation, they were fine
Mm-hmm.
until
Mm-hmm.
something happened,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
out of that, they may have survived it, but
Mm-hmm.
they something happened, and they are now disabled.
Mm-hmm.
So in this discussion that we're having, I knew that it's a very needed topic, and I know that the way that
Mm-hmm.
you're relaying this information, it's such in depth, and I want to
Mm-hmm.
thank you at this point for coming on and talking about this and sharing this because I really believe, Jackie, and I have also kind of observed that people feel like
Mm-hmm.
disablement will never happen to them, but it's possible for all of us.
Right. right. I am taking my headphones off. Now, I am so sorry about that. Can you
Mm.
hear me now?
I can hear you now.
I forgot that my friend Shirley was listening, and I realized that when I put my headphones on, she's here listening on the phone, and she can't participate. She can't hear what we're saying.
Okay.
So, Shirley, I apologize. I've got you now.
Okay.
Anyway, yes, Electra, the point that you were making about, you know, you can be you can be just a person walking down the street one moment and
Mhm.
disabled the next.
Mhm.
That is a very real thing. I'm going to tell you just in a briefly, uh, two people that I know.
Mhm.
One was an
Okay.
Olympic swimmer, beautiful girl. Um, in a practice session, took the dive wrong, hit
Oh.
the bottom of the pool and broke her neck,
Mm. Mm.
instantly paralyzed.
Okay.
So 1 minute she's jumping in a pool, and the next
Mhm.
she's paralyzed.
Mhm.
Another young man out riding around with his buddies on a Friday night.
Mhm.
The driver had a couple of drinks too many.
Mhm.
Um, they hit a telephone pole.
Mhm.
My friend was in the back seat,
Yes.
and the two guys in the front seat went through the windshield, cut up, bleeding, looking terrible.
Uh huh.
But they walked away. My
Okay.
friend in the back seat looked just fine. The
Mm.
paramedics didn't think anything was wrong with him, but he couldn't get out. He
Hmm.
couldn't he couldn't raise his arm.
Mhm.
His neck broke.
Oh.
Instantly paralyzed in
Okay.
that moment. One moment, just riding around with his buddies. The next moment,
Mhm.
he's paralyzed. It can happen to anybody. I
Anybody.
pray to God it doesn't happen to you,
Mhm.
but my own story. Electra knew me before I was disabled.
Yes.
I, working, going about my life, I kept falling down. All of a
Yes.
sudden, I'd be walking down, standing in my house, walking down a hallway. I'd be at the office, and all of a sudden, I would fall down. It would
Yes.
be like my joints just stopped working. My
Mhm.
bones were no longer connected to each other,
Mhm.
and it took a little while to figure that out. But I have a disease called inclusion body myositis. It's a form of muscular dystrophy,
Mhm.
and it does affect the extremities first. But I had ignored it in my extremities for a long time. I
Yes.
just thought, you know, I
Mhm.
I walked too much. I
Mhm.
thought my feet hurt.
Yes.
I kept buying new shoes because my
Mhm.
feet hurt.
Mm.
I thought it was my shoes. It wasn't my shoes. I
Yes.
traded in my car because I
Mhm.
thought it was my car.
Mhm.
Wasn't my car. It
Yes.
was me.
Yes.
You can be fine one day and disabled the next. So don't ever think that you are immune, but at the same time, don't think you can catch it from
Yes.
somebody else.
Exactly.
You're not going to catch having a spinal cord injury from another person. It's
Mhm.
not going to happen.
Yes.
So don't worry about that.
And
Um,
the viewer said, "Yes, we
uh-huh.
can." The viewer said, "Yes, we can." And I know from experience right up on me with
Mm-hmm.
my own child, how it impacted her vision. Um, the
Mm-hmm.
illness that she developed and lived with, and it
Mm-hmm.
is a disability, but
It is a disability.
people need to educate themselves on being disabled because many people are afraid to let people know when it's not visible that
Mm-hmm.
that they have a disability.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to know how to help yourself, family
Mm-hmm.
member or friend,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
when this happens.
Not every disability is visible. There are many unseen disabilities, many. Not all of them physical, not all of them mental. There are some physical disabilities. I, for example, just as not have a different disease than Miss Electra's daughter, but I have corneal dystrophy. That's a disease in my eye. I am losing my vision in one eye. I will eventually go blind in this eye. I don't tell people that. They don't know that unless I tell them.
Right.
But if I tell them, if I say, excuse me, would you mind if I sit on that side of the room so that I can see the screen better because I don't see so well? If they say that, don't run away screaming. They're not contagious.
Right.
I
Right.
have a friend who over time went deaf in one ear.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever she wants to go, whenever we go for a walk, we go shopping together sometimes. One of my very best friends. She always has to be on on my right side
Mm-hmm.
because she's deaf in the left ear. So that's nothing. That doesn't make her anything wrong with her. I'm not going to catch it. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not going to go deaf from her,
Mm-hmm.
but it's a small matter to let
Mm-hmm.
her sit on the right hand side.
Yes.
Uh, walk on the whichever ear is. I don't even remember which ear it is, but whatever side she needs to be on.
Mm-hmm.
Just if you listen to your friends, if they say, hey, listen, I don't hear so well out of this ear or see so well, listen to what they're saying and don't make a big deal about it. They're
Mm-mm.
not making a big deal about it, so
Mm-mm.
you don't need to make a big deal about it.
Exactly.
If they tell you, for example, sometimes I'll be talking with someone on the phone or something, and my eye will start to throb.
Mm-hmm.
And I will just say, listen, I've got to get off the phone. And if it's someone I know well, I'll say, that eye thing is acting up again. And
Mm-hmm.
they know off the phone. It has nothing, they're not mad at me. They're not this. They just let me off the phone.
Yes.
Sometimes the unseen disability is mental. Now, if you logged in to the participant, Miss Crystal, was that last week, Crystal Beard, or was that
Yes,
2 weeks
that
ago?
was last
I
week.
lose track.
Last
Last
week.
week. Miss Crystal talked about the disability of severe depression,
Mm-hmm.
being bipolar, schizophrenic, all kinds of mental disabilities, and
Yes.
how people will look at someone who has a mental disability and not know they have that mental disability unless they tell you they don't want you to know.
Exactly.
But let me say this, all they want you to do is treat them as an equal.
Exactly.
If you treat them as an equal, there's no reason that it should be an issue.
Mm-hmm.
You don't, if they say to you, listen, could you lower your voice a little because loud noises kind of set me off? Then
Mm-hmm.
you know what? That's not a reflection on you personally that you're a loudmouth.
Exactly.
They're telling you in their own way, listen, I have an issue.
Mm-hmm.
Loud noises
Mm-hmm.
could set off my epilepsy, could set off a seizure of some sort, could put me into a panic mode.
Mm-hmm.
You, if they will say it, if they couldn't handle being in the general public, they wouldn't be. They
Exactly.
wouldn't be.
Exactly.
They're teaching themselves at the same time. All that a disabled person wants, as a general rule, and I'm going to admit, just like any population, there are
Mm-hmm.
10% of posers and users. 10% of any population are posers and users, whatever. Just know that. But 90% of any of, of the disabled community, whether it's an unseen disability or a seen disability, they just want you to understand that we are equal.
Mm-hmm.
We are equal.
Yes.
Um, I'm going to talk about a couple of instances where public awareness could make a difference. First of all, if you see somebody, for example, with a seeing eye dog,
Mm-hmm.
okay, or with a therapy dog. Not all dogs who are accompanied service dogs are
Mm-hmm.
seeing eye dogs.
Mm-hmm.
A lot, especially veterans with PTSD,
Exactly.
there are dogs that are trained to
Exactly.
help them get back to calm
Mhm.
when a situation happens. Okay. So do not just approach their dog and say, "Oh, pretty doggy." They wear vests that
Mhm.
say therapy dog
Mhm.
or service dog
Or
for a
comfort.
reason.
Comfort
You,
dog.
oh, yeah, or comfort dog. They wear a vest so
Mhm.
that you will know. So you can say to that person, "May I pet your dog?" And if the person says, "No, it's best not to," because they'll say no because he is taught to react to certain signals, then
Yes.
don't worry. It's not a reflection on you.
Mm-mm.
They're not dissing you. They're just telling you, no, it's best not to. He's a service dog.
Right. Right.
It's best not to.
Yes.
And so don't make assumptions about yourself or about them based on
Mhm.
their responses.
Right.
If you see somebody who is interacting with other people in an inappropriate manner,
Mhm.
then it is okay for you to say, "Excuse me,
Right.
do you need help?
Mhm.
Excuse me, do you need assistance?" For example, sometimes you'll go into, and I'm going to say specifically, I ride the bus a lot. I take the bus a lot. Also, this has happened at waiting in doctors' offices, waiting rooms and stuff. I'll just be sitting, next to a sofa or whatever, and you can tell when someone who sits beside you, either on the bus or on a sofa or in a waiting room,
Mhm.
you can often tell when they're mentally challenged. And
Yes.
sometimes they will want to hold your hand,
Okay.
or they will want to ask you, they will be like a child
Mhm.
many times. They'll
Okay.
want to hold your hand, or they'll be fidgety and nervous.
Mhm.
And you know what? If if the person that is with them,
Mhm.
in that case, it's all right to say to the person who is with them, "Will it be all right if I hold his hand?"
Yes.
Or if he wants to hold your hand, what is wrong with letting him hold
Hold
your
your
hand in
hand.
the office? He's probably
Mhm.
scared to death.
Yes.
Think of that person. Don't think of that person as a danger. Think of them as an opportunity. Now,
Yes.
I don't want you to put yourself in harm either. You and I, we've both seen people standing on the side of the road, sometimes acting crazy, or seeing people at bus stops marching around, talking to themselves, screaming out loud to themselves. Don't put
Yes.
yourself in danger.
Right.
Okay? Don't put yourself in danger.
Mhm.
If you feel like there is danger, the
Mhm.
first thing you do is turn around and walk away.
Okay.
But if inside you feel like this person may need assistance,
Mhm.
it's okay to say, you don't have to even approach them. You don't have to get within arm's distance of them. And you
Right.
can say, "Young woman, young
Mhm.
lady,
Mhm.
can I help you?"
Yes.
And if you're really concerned for their safety, call 911.
Mhm.
Call 911.
That's right.
But it's okay if they say, "Oh, no, I'm just mad at my boy." Half the time they might just say that. "Oh, no, I'm just mad at my boyfriend.
Mhm.
There's nothing." Use
I
your voice.
I
Yes.
have I have one of the viewers that I want to chime in and read
Mm-hmm.
off to what the viewer is saying. The viewer
Okay.
says, "I hate it even when someone is speaking to me and I say if you were a normal person because they know about my disability, it really irks my nerves. Plus, it's just rude."
It's just rude. It's just rude. Treat them as an equal. You should never make an assumption about someone, anyone,
Mm-hmm.
no matter what their physical condition is,
Mm-hmm.
one way or the other, that they're not your equal.
Mm-hmm.
No matter what their skin color, their race, religion, ethnicity,
Whatever. Mm-hmm.
disability, one crooked
Socioeconomic
eye, one straight.
background.
It does.
Socioeconomic
Yes.
background.
Yeah. It doesn't matter what they're wearing.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter what they smell like. I'm sorry, but it doesn't, because you don't know that that person may have just stepped in a big pile of dog poo.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know that.
You don't
Don't
know.
make assumptions. Do not make assumptions. You do not know.
Yes.
I'm gonna tell you another instance. Sometimes people are just afraid of people. Okay, not when all these concealed carry things passed and unconcealed carry things, and it's okay to, have a weapon. So on the bus. So I'm on the bus, and a man gets on the bus, and he's got this gorgeous walking staff, but he's
Mm-hmm.
also very obviously armed.
Mm-hmm.
And you could see people backing away from him. And I saw that, and I could see him kind of looking around like this, like, all
Mm-hmm.
right, this is how they're going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I said to him, what a beautiful walking staff that is. Did
Mm-hmm.
you make that yourself?
Mm-hmm.
And that man was one of the sweetest, kindest men I have ever had a conversation with.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't do I think that we should just rush out there and go right up and address someone with a gun? Use your common sense, people.
Yes.
Don't treat them as a pariah. Treat them as an equal,
That's right.
because that's all they are. They are equal to you.
You know, Jackie,
Um, I'm gonna just yeah, go ahead.
you talk about that scenario. Um, I when years ago I worked at another organization, and when you mentioned veterans and a lot of their disabilities, they have multiples. They didn't leave home like that, but going to Vietnam and these other war zones, it did things to
Mm-hmm.
them mentally that nobody ever
Mm-hmm.
knows, and they don't talk about it because people have a tendency
Don't talk
to
about it.
stigmatize veterans. We say thank you
Mm-hmm.
for your service, but we don't treat them like we thank them for their services, because once we see
Mm-hmm.
them with some type of outward disability, and sometimes we don't even have to see that.
Mm-hmm.
They just say, I've been to the
Mm-hmm.
military. We automatically, when I say we,
Mm-hmm.
I mean society, we stigmatize them. And
Society.
again, like the viewer said, that is rude to do that. And I had a gentleman
Rude.
in this organization that I worked in years ago, and he was on the inside. You wouldn't have never thought anything was going on with him. But one day, his wife forgot to pick him. She didn't forget to pick him up. She was late picking him up, and it triggered something.
Mm-hmm.
And they were
Uh-huh.
running all over the place and saying something's wrong with him. Well, he jumped down on the ground. He had went back into the military in his
In his
mental,
mind.
because he didn't
Mm-hmm.
see
Mm-hmm.
her when she got there. These people
Mm-hmm.
had literally called the police. The man was just dealing with whatever it was, because he's protected through
Mm-hmm.
HIPAA and you don't discuss it. But his wife, when she got out of the car, she knew just how to handle it. She
Mm-hmm.
handled it. And what I want to say before I turn it back over to you is, people can sit all they want to. You, but we had better start educating ourselves about some real life issues, because we are
Mm-hmm.
getting older. I right now deal with my vision. I have a medication that's $600, and there are people who don't have insurance. And when this stuff hits
Mm-hmm.
them, they don't even know where to go for help. I just happen
That's
to
right.
have a job and have good insurance, and then I have a
Mm-hmm.
supplemental insurance. Or $600 is a lot of money that I would have to come off
A
of
lot of
if
money.
I didn't have
A lot of
the
money.
money. But for
A lot of
six
money.
hundred dollar medication, I pay $30. But what
Yeah.
I'm saying, Jacqueline, and I know you're gonna get into it. Look here,
No, I'm just saying I'm good with it.
when this happens, and you're not even educated well enough to know where to go to get the help, because you thought in your mind this would never happen. When my
What
daughter's
happened to
condition
you?
hit her, her treatments was $900 per treatment with insurance. months. On top of
Mhm.
that, this is
Mhm.
another thing. People say, well, I don't get into politics and I don't do this. And I'm just going to say this because it impacted my family in such a way. If it had not been from the Affordable Care Act, my daughter now pays a very low cost
Mhm.
because
Mhm.
of the Affordable
Mhm.
Care Act. And that
Mhm.
is why we had better get educated on some things
Mhm.
and stop
Mhm.
always just thinking that everything in
Mhm.
life right now is going to keep going like it's going because it's
Yeah.
not.
Yeah. That's right. My sister and I are in the same boat. Um, Now I'm retired. Now I have Social Security. My sister is retired now. Now she has Social Security. But before she had Social Security,
Mm-hmm.
she was still disabled. And she had a minimum wage job, no insurance.
Mm-hmm.
And so she was paying, she was ignoring her health care in many cases.
Mm-hmm.
She is in a situation now where she walks with two canes.
Mm-hmm.
She walks with two canes because she was in an accident
Okay.
years ago
Mm-hmm.
and unable to get the treatment she needed because she had no insurance.
Mm-hmm.
So people, people make assumptions. They
Yes.
they make assumptions about people. You should not do that.
You shouldn't.
I want to say I'm gonna two things real quick because I know that we're gonna have to go soon. First, I'm gonna say three things. I
We're
might have to
good.
say four.
We're
Here you
good.
go. Come on.
We're good. We good. We
But
have
the
time.
first thing I'm gonna say is one thing that bothers me
Mm-hmm.
is when you look at someone and you see that they're paying for something in all quarters and dimes, and you're like, yeah, that's probably because they spent all their money on beer. Oh
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you see a disabled person and they're paying for everything, and in your mind you say, oh, they're just on disability.
Mm-hmm.
That what do you think they're spend they are spending their money on medicine and food. Trust me,
Mm-hmm.
when you see somebody having to count out the single dollar bills, thank God
Mm-hmm.
for everything that you have.
Yes.
And I'm not telling you to give your money away, but I'm telling you that if that person is willing to accept a dollar from you,
Mm-hmm.
they might love to have it.
Mm-hmm.
Because if they're having to count out change to
Mm-hmm.
get a soda,
Yes.
in your mind, are you going to say to them, you don't deserve a soda because you're dead? Yeah, no.
Hmm.
If they are equal to you,
That's
it's
right.
taken them every dime to live. Okay, I'm
Yes.
going to get off that soapbox. Okay,
No, it's
two
true.
things I want to make people aware of: public transportation.
Mm-hmm.
Public transportation. On every form of public transportation, buses, trains, subways, you know, trolley, whatever, there are seats set aside for the elderly and disabled. What's unique about these seats? Usually they will fold up out of the way for a wheelchair, or
Mm-hmm.
they're at the front of the bus, easy to get in and out of for the disabled. It's an easy thing for an able-bodied person to get up and find another seat.
Mm-hmm.
It is not an easy thing for a disabled person to find another spot. If you see somebody climbing on the bus, climbing on the train, even if they're just having crutches,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, have some human compassion. If
Yes.
you are sitting in that seat that can be folded up out of the
Mm-hmm.
way, please move.
Mm-hmm.
Please move.
Mm-hmm.
It takes nothing. It
Mm-hmm.
takes nothing.
Yes.
Okay? Part number two, parking spots. I know that there are a lot of people who take advantage of handicap parking because grandma's got a handicap plate. Their Aunt Sue lets them use their placard. First of all, they shouldn't do that. If you
Mm-hmm.
catch them at it, please call them out.
Yeah.
Because when I am in my wheelchair or in my walker, either way,
Mm-hmm.
I have to have that room to get out of the car.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm in a van with a lift, or if I'm in a car because I've take my walker,
Mm-hmm.
I cannot get out of the car. If that handicap spot is not available, we might have to park out in the East Outer 40 in order
Mm-hmm.
to have space for me to get out of the car. Common courtesy.
Yes.
I know that everybody's lives are busy. Everybody's racing into the store. I understand that. But if
Mhm.
you don't need the parking place, please don't take it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Item number three,
It's okay.
fast food restaurants. Every fast food restaurant, if you look, you will see a table that has that little medallion on it of the person in the wheelchair.
Mhm.
There's always a little table with that medallion on it in it on a wheelchair. Now, if the restaurant is crowded and there's no other table available, please take that table.
Mhm.
It's okay.
Yeah.
But if you have a choice, please sit someplace else because my wheelchair isn't going to fit under those other tables.
Yes.
My wheelchair is not going to fit in those tables with the seats that are attached.
Mhm.
I can't I can't get to the table.
Mhm.
So if you're sitting in the only table in the restaurant with that little bitty symbol on it with
Mhm.
the disability symbol, be courteous.
Yes.
Just take a minute. Be courteous. Let me just say one more thing. I'm going to say it from two points of view.
Okay.
You go into a deli. I'm in a wheelchair. I go into a deli. I go into this deli and there's a long line ahead of me. And I get in the line. What should you do as an able-bodied person in front of me in that line? You should turn around and say, "Hey, have you eaten here before? Is it any good?"
Mhm.
Or conversation. What you shouldn't do, and what's happened to me, is I've had people jump up from behind the counter
Mhm.
and go and pull me out of the line and bring me up to the head of the line and say, "Oh, you're special. You're special. You don't have to wait in the line. You're special." Now, thank you that you think I'm special. But I want to be special because of my personality, my glowing talents.
Yeah.
I want to be special because I glow from the inside. I don't want to be special because my legs don't work so well.
Yes.
You don't need to pull me out of the line and treat me like somebody different.
Mm-mm.
On the flip side of that, okay, one more thing. Everything brings up something else,
That's
right?
okay. Keep
Let's
talking.
talk. Let's talk about sporting events. Okay,
Okay.
for example, at Reliance Stadium, which is here in Houston, you go to a sporting event and you have to go up these ramps, 16 ramps to get to your seat, right? So
Mhm.
when the sporting event is over, everybody wants to get on the elevator to go down, right? But then you've got that person who's either being pushed in a wheelchair or in a walker who really can't make
Yes.
those 16 flights down those stairs.
Right.
Or the person who's pushing them or pulling them,
Mhm.
it's a burden for them.
Yeah.
So the line at the elevator is, 200 people long.
Mhm.
But at every sporting event, you will notice that there is an elevator. They have elevator operators beside every elevator.
Mhm.
They're not just there to make sure the elevator doesn't get overcrowded. You may think that, but that's not their only purpose. That's just a side purpose.
Yeah.
Their purpose is to make sure that the disabled people or elderly people, people with movement issues,
Mhm.
have first dibs on that elevator.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, because they need it. Other people can walk down,
Mhm.
or they can walk down.
Mhm.
I have been at specifically at department stores,
Okay.
getting in elevators with mothers pushing babies in trolleys
Uh huh.
who there's no room for me. I can't. I'm having to wait 5 and 6 elevators.
Yeah.
And finally, store security will almost every time because they'll be looking inside those elevators. They've got cameras. They'll
Yes.
see.
Yes.
And eventually, store security will come and they will make all those women get off the elevator. And
Mhm.
they'll say, "No,
Yeah.
the elevator is free for everyone to use, but first use is for the disabled and those who
Mhm.
can't. Please be courteous.
Yes.
That doesn't mean you can't take the elevator. It's coming back. I promise.
Mhm.
Elevators that go up, they will come down.
Mhm. Mhm.
Promise.
Yes.
Let that person in the wheelchair get in the elevator.
Yes.
Let them get on the bus.
Yes.
Let them get on the train.
Yes.
They can't squeeze into the same spots you can squeeze in.
Mm-hmm.
Please, please be courteous.
Yes.
Being courteous does not mean that you're not treating them as an equal.
That's right.
I would expect them to be courteous to you in return.
Yes. And
If you ask that disabled person, yeah, go ahead.
you know, and that I want to piggyback off of what you're saying, and that's all stemming from stereotyping people.
Mhm,
I can do this and I can move myself ahead because I don't have anything to stop me. But I want to
mhm,
take it to another level of an experience that I had when my daughter disease first hit her and we didn't know what was going on. They kept
mhm,
telling her that it was just her eyesight, she needed different glasses. But as it
mhm,
progressed, and one day she called me and she said, Mom, can you take me to the store? Because her husband had went to work, and I was like, where your car? And she said, oh, Mom, I mean, like, I can't see. And I'm like, you can't see? And she said, no, Mom, I can't see. But I asked any more questions. I immediately got in my car, went over to her house, and I'm rushing in because I'm like, I'm studying, constantly thinking why she can't see. She was seeing yesterday, but I thought about my sister who was talking about a lady that went to the Kingdom Hall with her and how she lay down one night and her and her husband was laying in bed and they was talking and laughing and they, went to bed, woke up the next morning and she was telling him to turn on the light. And he said, the lights are on. And she said, no,
mhm,
because it's dark in here. When she never regained her sight, she had lost her sight
mhm,
like overnight. My daughter
mhm,
was fortunate enough to regain a portion of her sight. Thank
mhm,
God for it. But Jackie, here's the
mhm,
stereotypical part.
mhm,
We would be in the store. One time we were in the store because she had to go pick up some things, but she had to hang on to me, right? The first
mhm,
thing, one
mhm.
of the ladies, they were together, and she says, oh, there's another one of those couples. This is my daughter. And you automatically, my daughter's hanging on to me because her sight. And I have to be close to
Mhm,
her. And
mhm,
she's holding my shoulder. And the only thing you can think of to say is, there
mhm,
goes another one of those couples.
mhm.
They are so quick to judge. And the viewer is
So
saying here, common courtesy is not so common. That's what one of the
that is
viewers is saying.
absolutely true.
They have no common
That is so
courtesy.
true.
And it's not so
And
common when you're dealing with the disabled.
that's true. I'm gonna tell you another incident that happened to me. First of all, I'm a very social person. I don't like this year of the pandemic has been very hard on me because I have been isolating for a year. Haven't been anywhere, haven't done anything. But before, I was always going somewhere.
Uh huh.
And from a particular house where I lived, in order to get to the grocery store by myself, there was one little spot that there wasn't a sidewalk. And it wasn't a main busy street because if it was a main busy street, I wouldn't have done it. But there was one little spot about 6 feet wide where I had to go down one driveway, get in the street, and go up another driveway to
Mm
get to the parking lot where the grocery store was.
hmm. Mm hmm.
And as I'm looking both ways, I'm waiting for there not to be any traffic, and there was no traffic. So I go out into the street, and this woman comes speeding up beside me in a van. How dare you make the rest of us have to pull over to the middle of the road to make room for you? How dare you make us even have to look at you? You shouldn't even be leaving your house.
Hmm.
6 feet. I was in the road for 6 feet, and not a major road, a residential road,
Yes.
just to get into the back of the parking lot where I could go around the parking lot to get into the grocery store, so that I can do my own grocery shopping. But this woman was so vile,
Hmm.
and I was like, "What? What?" But you know what I thought? The thought that came to my mind
Mm-hmm.
wasn't that wicked, wicked woman. That thought was, God,
Hmm.
she's having a bad day.
Uh-huh.
There's somebody who's having a bad day. Please help her day get better.
Yes.
Because I try not to judge people.
Right.
That is not my job.
Right.
Not
Right.
my job to judge anybody. So I try not to judge, but still that resonates in me,
Yes.
that
Yes.
that woman would say those things to me.
Yes. Yes.
Anyway, we have been talking and talking and talking. And
Yes.
as Electra knows, I'm having some minor surgery tomorrow,
Yes.
and I've got some medicine I have to take, prep for that. And any of
Yes.
you who've had minor surgery know what that prep is like. You know what
Yes.
you got to do.
Yes.
So I've
Yes.
got to take this medicine, and my time is up. I've got to
Yes.
go take it.
Yes.
So I have to say good night.
Yes. And we're going.
I have enjoyed this.
Me
This has
too.
been, and I'd love to do it again sometime.
Yes.
So
I think we need to,
anybody with any
Jackie.
questions? Yeah. Any questions about if you had a situation of dealing with someone that you're unsure about or you're not sure how to deal about, please ask.
Please.
Electra and I, we are on here every week.
Mm-hmm.
I am, as she has told you, I'm her technical director.
Yes.
I handle the technical issues behind the scenes,
Yes.
and so I'm here. I'm always
Yes.
here to answer your questions.
Yes.
Just to ask Electra, and she'll
Yes.
get them to you.
Yes.
Or to Electra, she can answer a lot of them herself. But just ask.
And don't forget,
Just ask.
Jackie, what's our
Yep,
logo here?
that's
Is
right.
stop
Stop
hiding.
hiding. I don't have my shirt yet. I'm
It's
going to get
coming.
my shirt.
Stop hiding
Stop
your story.
hiding your story. Stop hiding your story.
Thank you.
Electra James Inspirational Talks.
Yes.
So join us next week for our next speaker, and also next Tuesday night on my channel for our
Yes.
writers workshop.
Yes.
I'll see you then. Okay.
Okay.
Electra's going to tell you. Is going to tell you about who's our speaker for next week. I don't know who it is.
I can't remember.
I lost track.
Me too.
I can't. She'll let you know. I promise. Because I have
Okay.
to go take this medicine. So thank you, everybody.
Okay.